They need to learn responsibility, unlike your sister's spoiled children. My mother's words cut through the hotel lobby as she watched my 16-year-old daughter, Emma, scrubbing the marble floors. Meanwhile, my sister Victoria's twins lounged by the pool, their brand new Mercedes and BMWs sparkling in the parking lot. My name is Catherine Sullivan, and at 42, I've spent 20 years watching our family's luxury hotel, the Grand Magnolia, become a stage for my parents' blatant favoritism. Victoria's children, Blake and Brooke, both 17, had never worked a day in their lives. My kids, Emma and Michael, 14, spent their summers and weekends maintaining the very hotel that should have been their sanctuary. Mom, I started trying to keep my voice steady. Emma has straight A's and 3 academic scholarships already. Michael's science project just won the state championship. They don't need more responsibility, they need to be teenagers. My mother waved her hand dismissively, her diamond rings catching the chandelier light. Victoria's children are being groomed for management. They need to understand the luxury lifestyle to cater to our high-end clientele. Your children, well, they should be grateful for the experience. I watched Emma's shoulders tense as she continued scrubbing, pretending not to hear. My heart ached. The same week Blake and Brooke got their luxury cars for their 17th birthday. My kids were handed new uniforms and cleaning schedules. The Grand Magnolia had been in our family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it from the ground up, transforming a modest inn into one of the most prestigious hotels in New England. He'd always said the hotel would go to the grandchild who understood the value of hard work. Somehow, my parents had twisted his words to justify their warped system. That evening, I found Emma in her room, her hands red and raw from cleaning. She was hunched over her AP chemistry homework, determination etched on her face despite her exhaustion. "Sweetheart," I said softly, sitting on her bed, "we don't have to stay. We can leave, find our own way." Emma looked up, her green eyes, so like her late father's, filled with the wisdom beyond her years. "Mom, I'm okay. Besides, Blake and Brooke don't even know how to make their own beds. Someone needs to keep this place running." I hugged her tight, fighting back tears. 5 years ago, when my husband David died in a car accident, my parents offered us a place to stay at the hotel. What I thought was generosity turned out to be an opportunity to acquire free labor. Meanwhile, Victoria lived in the hotel's luxury penthouse suite with her husband and twins, all expenses paid. The next morning, I was reviewing the hotel's books, my official job as the assistant manager, though I did everything from scheduling to crisis management, when I noticed something odd. The revenue numbers didn't match the occupancy rates. We were supposedly fully booked, but the income showed significant shortfalls. "Probably just a computer glitch," Victoria said, breezing past my office in designer workout wear. "Don't worry your pretty little head about it. Daddy has everything under control." But something felt wrong. I'd inherited my grandfather's head for numbers, and these discrepancies were too consistent to be mistakes. I started digging deeper, staying late after my shifts, cross-referencing bookings with bank deposits. One evening, as I was going through old files, Michael knocked on my office door. His face was smudged with dirt from cleaning the garden fountains, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "Mom, guess what? I just got invited to the National Science Camp this summer. Full scholarship." His smile faltered slightly. "But Grandma says I can't go. She says they need me here for the busy season." Before I could respond, Victoria's voice rang out from the hallway. "Oh, that reminds me. Blake and Brooke are going to Europe for the summer. Daddy already approved their tickets, first class, of course. Educational experiences are so important at their age." I watched the light dim in Michael's eyes, though he tried to maintain his smile. "It's okay, Mom. Maybe next year." That was the moment something inside me snapped. I'd endured years of unfair treatment, but watching my children's dreams being systematically crushed while their cousins lived like royalty, that was my breaking point. "No," I said firmly, standing up. "You're going to that science camp, Michael. I'll figure something out." Victoria lingered in the doorway, a smirk playing on her perfectly glossed lips. "Oh, Catherine, always trying to rise above your station. You know Daddy won't approve. Besides, who will maintain the grounds while he's gone? Blake and Brooke certainly can't do it." "Exactly my point," I muttered, but Victoria had already sashayed away, her laughter echoing down the hall. That night, I couldn't sleep. The numbers from the hotel books kept swimming through my mind. Years of accounting experience told me something was seriously wrong. I slipped out of bed and went back to my office, determined to uncover the truth. Hours passed as I dug through financial records, cross-referencing dates and transactions. Around dawn, I found it, a pattern of discrepancies going back months. Large sums of money were being transferred to offshore accounts, disguised as maintenance expenses and supply orders. My hands trembled as I documented everything. This wasn't just mismanagement, this was systematic fraud. But who was behind it? My father had always been careful with money, almost to a fault. Mom? Emma's voice startled me. She stood in the doorway, already in her housekeeping uniform. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I quickly minimized the spreadsheets on my computer. I'm fine, sweetheart, just working on some numbers. Is this about the missing money? She asked, closing the door behind her. When I stared at her in surprise, she continued, I've noticed things too. The supply orders that never arrive, the maintenance bills for work that's never done. Blake brags about his trust fund all the time, but last week, I overheard him arguing with Aunt Victoria about bounced checks. My brilliant, observant daughter. While everyone underestimated her, she'd been quietly paying attention to everything. The hotel's in trouble, isn't it? She asked softly. I nodded slowly. I think so. But I'm going to figure this out, and things are going to change around here. Over the next few days, I carefully gathered evidence while maintaining my usual routine. I noticed new details now, how Victoria and her family's extravagant lifestyle seemed to coincide with the largest financial discrepancies, how my father looked increasingly worried during management meetings, how my mother's spending had become even more lavish than usual. I was in my office late one evening, finalizing my documentation, when I heard voices from my father's study next door. The walls in this old building were thin and words carried. The auditors are coming next month. My father's voice was tense. We can't hide this anymore, Victoria. The accounts are empty. Daddy, you promised us that trust fund. Victoria's voice took on the whiny tone she used since childhood to get her way. Blake and Brooke's future depends on it. Their European trip is already booked. The hotel is about to go bankrupt, my father snapped. Years of your excessive spending, the constant demands for more money. It's all caught up with us. We'll be lucky if we don't face criminal charges. I sat frozen, the pieces finally clicking into place. Victoria had been bleeding the hotel dry, using her influence over our parents to funnel money into her family's extravagant lifestyle. And my parents had let it happen, perhaps out of guilt, perhaps out of weakness, until there was nothing left. My mind raced to my children, to their years of thankless work, to their sacrifice opportunities, to my grandfather's dream, now on the brink of collapse. I couldn't let this happen. The next morning, I made 2 calls. The first was to my grandfather's old lawyer, Mr. Harrison, who had helped establish the hotel's original ownership structure. The second was to a forensic accountant I knew from my previous banking job. Send me everything you found, the accountant said. If what you're describing is accurate, we're looking at serious financial fraud. I worked through the night, organizing documents, tracking money trails, building an ironclad case. Emma and Michael helped, their years of working in every department giving them intimate knowledge of the hotel's operations. Look at this, Michael said, pointing to a maintenance log. The dates of these supposed renovations, the hotel was fully booked then. There's no way they could have done this work without guests noticing. Emma nodded, adding another document to our growing pile. And these supply orders, the quantities don't match our inventory records. Not even close. My clever, hard-working children. While Blake and Brooke had been living in luxury, Emma and Michael had been learning every aspect of hotel operations, knowledge that was now proving invaluable. A week later, Mr. Harrison called with news that changed everything. I've reviewed the original ownership documents, he said. Your grandfathers will have a specific clause about hotel management. If any member of the family is found to be misusing hotel funds, their claim to ownership is automatically voided. I felt a glimmer of hope. What does that mean exactly? It means, Catherine, that if we can prove financial misconduct, the hotel's ownership reverts to the next responsible family member, specifically, the one who has demonstrated dedication to its proper management. As I hung up the phone, I looked at my children who had sacrificed so much for this place. Perhaps their years of learning responsibility were about to pay off in ways my parents never intended. But before I could act on this information, Victoria burst into my office, her face flushed with anger. "What's this I hear about you talking to lawyers? Are you trying to cause trouble?" I met her gaze steadily. "No, Victoria. I'm trying to save our grandfather's legacy, something you've been systematically destroying." She laughed, but I caught the nervous edge in her voice. "Please, you're just jealous because your children aren't good enough for management positions. Face it, Catherine, you and your kids are meant to be the help." As she stormed out, I opened my laptop and began composing an email to the hotel's board of directors. Attached were all the documents we gathered, every piece of evidence of the financial fraud that had nearly destroyed our family's legacy. It was time for things to change at the Grand Magnolia. My grandfather had been right about one thing: the hotel should go to those who understood the value of hard work. He just hadn't specified which generation that would be. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp in the hotel's grand conference room. I sat quietly, Emma and Michael beside me, as the directors filed in. Victoria arrived late as usual, dragging Blake and Brooke behind her. My parents entered last, my father's face ashen, my mother clutching her designer handbag like a shield. "What's this emergency meeting about?" Victoria demanded, her voice too loud for the somber atmosphere. "And why are the help here?" She gestured dismissively toward my children. The head of the board, Mr. Richardson, cleared his throat. "We've received some disturbing information about the hotel's finances. Ms. Sullivan has provided extensive documentation of systematic fraud and misappropriation of funds." The color drained from Victoria's face. My mother dropped her handbag, makeup spilling across the polished floor. Blake and Brooke, for once, weren't glued to their phones. "Impossible," my father stammered. "There must be some mistake." "No mistake," I said, my voice steady as I stood up. "Every transaction is documented, every fraudulent transfer, every fake renovation, every inflated supply order. The money trail leads directly to Victoria's personal accounts and her children's trust funds." Victoria leaped to her feet. "You've been spying on us? How dare you?" "No, Victoria," Emma spoke up, her voice clear and professional. "We've been doing our jobs. All of them, including accounting, maintenance, and inventory management, jobs you thought were beneath your children." Mr. Richardson nodded gravely. "The evidence is conclusive. Furthermore, we've reviewed the original ownership documents. According to your grandfather's will, this level of financial misconduct automatically disqualifies the responsible parties from any claim to hotel ownership." My mother found her voice. But what about Blake and Brooke? They're supposed to take over management. Your grandchildren haven't demonstrated any capability to manage this hotel," Mr. Richardson replied. "In fact, according to staff records, they've never worked a single shift here." Unlike Emma and Michael, another board member added, "Their employee records show thousands of hours across every department, consistently positive guest feedback, and innovative suggestions for improvement." Victoria's face contorted with rage. "This is ridiculous. They're servants, not managers." "No," I cut in. "They're hardworking, intelligent young people who understand every aspect of this business. While your children were spending hotel money on luxury cars and European vacations, mine were learning what it really takes to run a successful hotel." Mr. Richardson shuffled his papers. "The board has made its decision. In accordance with your grandfather's will, and given the evidence of financial misconduct, control of the Grand Magnolia will pass to Catherine Sullivan and her children, effective immediately." The room erupted in chaos. Victoria screamed about lawyers and lawsuits. My mother burst into tears. Blake and Brooke stormed out, slamming the door behind them. But my father just sat there, staring at the financial reports spread across the table. "All these years," he muttered, "I let this happen. I chose the wrong daughter to trust." After the meeting, Emma and Michael hugged me tight. For the first time in years, they didn't have to rush off to clean rooms or maintain the grounds. They were finally being recognized for what they truly were, the future of the Grand Magnolia. Victoria and her family were given 48 hours to vacate their penthouse suite. As they packed, I could hear her shrill voice echoing through the halls, threatening legal action, demanding justice. But she had no ground to stand on. The evidence was irrefutable, and grandfather's will was clear. That evening, as I sat in what was now my office, the hotel manager's office, my father knocked tentatively on the door. "May I come in?" he asked, looking older than I'd ever seen him. I nodded, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. Catherine, he began, his voice heavy with regret. I don't expect you to forgive us. We failed you and your children terribly. But I need you to know, your grandfather would be proud. This is exactly what he wanted for the hotel. I thought about all the years of unfairness, the missed opportunities, the constant degradation. But I also thought about what my children had learned through it all: resilience, work ethic, and the true meaning of responsibility. The hotel needs a lot of work, I said finally. Years of mismanagement have taken their toll. We have a long road ahead. He nodded, understanding my unspoken message. The past couldn't be erased, but the future was in our hands now, and we had work to do. As my father left, Emma and Michael came in, their faces glowing with possibility. So, Mom, Emma said, spreading out a notebook filled with ideas, Michael and I have been thinking about some improvements. Looking at my children, seeing their excitement and competence, I knew the Grand Magnolia was finally in the right hands. Sometimes being given cleaning duties instead of cars turns out to be the greatest gift of all. 3 months after taking over the Grand Magnolia, the transformation was remarkable. Emma's innovative marketing strategies had boosted bookings by 40%, while Michael's efficiency improvements had significantly cut operating costs. The hotel was slowly but surely recovering from years of mismanagement. One morning, as I reviewed the latest financial reports, my mother appeared in my office doorway. She looked different, her designer clothes replaced by simpler attire, her usual air of superiority gone. The hotel looks wonderful, she said softly. The new garden design, the renovated suites, everything feels fresh but still elegant. I nodded, waiting. This was her first visit since the board meeting. I saw Emma training the new staff yesterday, she continued. She has such a natural way with people. And Michael's new energy-saving system is brilliant. I was so wrong about them. Yes, I replied simply. You were. She twisted her hands nervously. Victoria's not doing well. The twins had to withdraw from their private school. They couldn't afford the tuition without the hotel money. They're living in a small apartment now. I thought about my own children's years of missed opportunities of working instead of enjoying their teenage years. They'll learn to adapt, like my children did. Catherine, my mother's voice cracked. I know we can't undo the past. But, is there any way we can be part of the hotel's future? Your father and I, we miss being here. We miss you and the children. I studied her face, seeing genuine regret there. That depends, I said finally. Are you ready to treat Emma and Michael as the capable managers they are, not as servants? She nodded earnestly. They've proven themselves beyond any doubt. We were blind not to see it before. Over the next few weeks, we cautiously began rebuilding family relationships. My father offered to help Michael expand the hotel's sustainability initiatives. My mother surprisingly threw herself into learning everyday operations, no task too humble for her now. Emma and Michael, showing more grace than I might have in their position, welcomed their grandparents' efforts to make amends. They even started teaching them aspects of the business they'd learned over the years. You know, Mom, Emma said one evening as we shared dinner in the hotel's restaurant, I actually think everything worked out for the best. If Blake and Brooke had been given all the opportunities, they never would have learned what we know. Michael nodded. And now we understand every aspect of the hotel, from the ground up. We can make better decisions because we know how everything works. Victoria and the twins remained distant, still bitter about their fall from grace. But occasionally, I'd receive updates about Blake getting a part-time job or Brooke learning to budget her money. Perhaps some good had come from their reversal of fortune too. The Grand Magnolia was thriving under our family's new leadership. Guest reviews praised the personal touch and attention to detail, qualities my children had learned during their years of character-building work. The hotel's reputation for excellence, established by my grandfather, was being restored and enhanced by his great-grandchildren. Looking back, the years of unfair treatment had given my children something priceless: the knowledge, skills, and work ethic to not just manage the hotel, but to make it better than ever. Sometimes, the best gifts come disguised as hardship. One day, during the annual staff appreciation dinner, an event Emma had instituted, I watched my children confidently leading their teams, respected and admired by all. My parents sat nearby, their pride now rightfully placed in grandchildren who had earned their success through hard work and determination. The cleaning duties that were meant to keep them in their place had instead prepared them to rise beyond anyone's expectations. Sometimes life has a way of turning supposed punishments into the greatest rewards. 5 years after taking over the Grand Magnolia, we celebrated the hotel's 50th anniversary. The grand ballroom sparkled with elegant decorations, a testament to Emma's impeccable taste and Michael's precise attention to detail. Guests from around the world had come to join the celebration, drawn by our reputation as one of the finest family-owned hotels in New England. During the celebration, I found myself standing in the same lobby where Emma had once scrubbed floors. Now, at 21, she was confidently greeting CEOs and celebrities, her natural grace making everyone feel special. Michael, 19, had just returned from his first year at MIT, where he was studying sustainable business practices, knowledge he'd apply to further improve the hotel's operations. "Quite a change, isn't it?" my father said, joining me at the lobby's edge. His hair had grown whiter, but his eyes were clearer now, unburdened by the weight of past mistakes. "I keep thinking about what Dad, your grandfather, would say if he could see this." "I think he knew," I replied. "That's why he put that clause in his will about hard work and responsibility." My mother approached, elegantly dressed, but noticeably lacking the artificial airs she'd once maintained. She found her own place in the hotel's operations, using her social connections to organize charity events that had become a cornerstone of our community involvement. "Victoria's here," she said quietly, nodding toward the entrance. I turned to see my sister standing uncertainly in the doorway. The years had softened her appearance, stripping away the entitlement that had once defined her. Behind her stood Blake and Brooke, now 22, both looking remarkably different from their privileged teenage selves. Emma spotted them first, making her way over with the professional warmth she showed all guests. But I saw genuine warmth in her smile too. Time had healed many wounds. "Welcome to the Grand Magnolia," she said, extending her hand. "We're so glad you could join us." Blake and Brooke, who had once lounged by the pool while their cousins worked, now carried themselves with a new humility. I'd heard that Blake was working his way through community college, while Brooke had started a small online business. They'd learned the lessons of hard work later than my children, but they'd learned them nonetheless. Victoria approached me slowly. "The hotel? It's beautiful, Catherine, more beautiful than it ever was under our management. It's amazing what can happen when you value hard work over privilege," I replied, not unkindly. She nodded, understanding the gentle rebuke. "Our children, they're doing better now, learning to stand on their own feet. Sometimes I think about how different things might have been if we'd raised them more like you raised Emma and Michael." The evening progressed with speeches and celebrations. Michael presented the hotel's new environmental initiatives, which had already gained national recognition. Emma announced our expansion plans, a second location that she would oversee while Michael managed our flagship property. As I watched my children command the room with their natural leadership and earn expertise, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The years of unfair treatment had forged them into exactly the kind of leaders the hotel needed. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the cleanup crews, now properly paid and respected, were finishing their work, I found Emma and Michael in the garden their grandfather had originally planted. "You know what's funny, Mom?" Emma said, looking up at the stars. "If they hadn't made us work all those years, if they'd given us cars and trips instead of cleaning duties, we probably wouldn't be here now." Michael nodded. "We wouldn't know the business like we do. We wouldn't understand what it takes to make a hotel truly great." I hugged them both, feeling overwhelmed with pride. You turned their punishment into your power. You took every task they gave you and learned from it. That's true success. As we walked back into the hotel, our hotel, I thought about how life sometimes gives us exactly what we need, even when it looks like unfair treatment. My children had been given cleaning duties instead of cars, and in return they gained something far more valuable, the ability to build their own legacy. The Grand Magnolia stood proudly in the moonlight, its windows gleaming with promise. Under the leadership of two young people who had started as its cleaners, it had become more than just a luxury hotel. It had become a testament to the power of hard work, resilience, and the unexpected ways life rewards those who never give up. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above and building something better than anyone thought possible. Emma and Michael had done exactly that, turning years of enforced responsibility into real success. transforming their grandfather's legacy into something even grander than he could have imagined. And in the end, that was worth more than all the luxury cars in the world.